How to control two light outlets from two circuits using dual single pole switch in one gang junction box. Control diagram using a dual single pole switch for two light outlets powered from two circuits, where the switch leg cable is taken from one of the light outlets. Control sketch using a dual single pole switch for two light outlets powered from two circuits, where the switch leg cable is taken from one of the light outlets. One gang junction box ready for connection. If necessary, label the cables. Markings on the cables. Cable secured to the stud within 12 inches from the cable entry into the junction box. Cable must be long enough to be properly spliced. Cable to the first controlled electrical outlet, light or receptacle. Switch leg cable from the second controlled electrical outlet, light or receptacle. Cable from the power source. Cable to another electrical outlet. Remove the cable sheath. The cable sheath shall extend into the junction box not less than 1/4 inch. 14 2 non-metallic sheathed cable wires. White, neutral wire. Bare, ground wire. Black, hot wire. Green wire nuts, which should only be used to connect the ground wire. The green wire nut has a special hole at the top that allows the bare pigtail of the ground wire, one of the ground wires to be spliced, to be exposed for connection to an electrical device after splicing. Popular tan wire nut which that fits most connections. Gather all ground, bare wires together. Wrap the shorter wires around the longest one, and trim the shorter wires to no less than 6 inches long. Shorter wires trimmed and wrapped around the longest one. Route the longest of the ground wires, bare, through the hole in the green wire nut and secure the wrapped wires with this wire nut. Connection secured with a green wire nut. Insert the connection into the junction box, leaving the pigtail wire outside the box. Connection of ground wires inserted into the junction box, and the pigtail wire left outside the box. Group all neutral, white wires together. White wire from the switch leg cable is not a neutral wire. Trim them to no shorter than 6 inches, and strip the ends of the wires about 1/2 inch. The length of free wire from the removed cable sheath must be at least 6 inches. At least 3 inches of wire must extend from the front of the junction box. Wire ends stripped of insulation. Using pliers and a wire nut, splice all neutral, white wires together. Splicing with pliers ensures a better connection. Connection made and secured with a wire nut. 3 to 5 twists are sufficient, as too many twists may damage the wire insulation. Insert spliced wires into the junction box. Neutral, white wires inside the junction box. Group hot, black wires from the cable from the power source and the cable to the other electrical outlet. Trim them to no shorter than 6 inches, and strip the ends of the wires about 1/2 inch. Hot wires, black, trimmed, and wire ends stripped of insulation. Take a piece of black wire of the same gauge to make a pigtail. Strip about 1/2 inch of insulation from the end of this wire end. Using pliers and a wire nut, connect it to the hot, black wires from the junction box that have already been trimmed and their ends stripped. Connection secured with a wire nut. Pigtail wire. Insert the spliced wires into the junction box, leaving the pigtail wire outside the box. Hot, black wires inserted into the junction box, and pigtail wire left outside the box. Use black electrical tape or other means to change the color of the neutral, white wire from the switch leg cable to the hot wire, as this wire will no longer be the neutral wire. White switch leg cable wire marked as hot. Group the pigtail wires and all remaining wires together and trim them to no shorter than 6 inches. Trimmed wires. Insert trimmed wires into the junction box. Wires inside the junction box, wire connection completed. To connect the wires to the switch, remove the wires from the junction box and strip the ends of the wires about 1/2 inch. Wire ends stripped of insulation. Make a loop at the end of each wire. A loop is made at the end of each wire. Dual single pole switch, front view. 2 single pole switches on 1 yoke. Dual single pole switch, rear view. Ground wire connection terminal, green screw. Common hot wire connection terminal, black screws. Load wire connection terminal, A1 gold screw. Load wire connection terminal, B1 gold screw. Connection bridge to be removed in the case of single pole switches controlling 2 electrical outlets powered by 2 different power sources, 2 circuits. Remove the bridge connecting the 2 hot common terminals, black screws. The bridge between the 2 hot common terminals, black screws, has been removed to create 2 independent single pole switches. The hot terminal, black screw, with load terminal A1 creates the first independent single pole switch. The hot terminal, black screw, with load terminal B1 creates the second independent single pole switch. Junction box wires. Ground, bare, wire that will be connected to the ground terminal, green screw, of the switch. Hot, black pigtail wire, from the power source which will be connected to the hot common terminal, black screw, of one of the 2 switches of the split dual switch. Hot, black, wire from the cable to the electrical outlet, which will be connected to the load terminal, gold screw, of the same single pole switch of the dual switch as the wire from the power source for this light outlet. The hot, black, wire from the power source and the hot, black, wire to the load from the same circuit must be connected to one of the 2 switches of the split double switch as a pair. It does not matter if the wire from the power source and the wire to the load are connected in any order to the same switch, but for consistency, the wire from the power source should be connected to the common terminal, black screw, and the load wire to the load terminal, gold screw, of the same single pole switch, as specified in the instructions. Hot, white marked black, wire from the switch leg cable that will be connected to the other common hot switch terminal, black screw. Hot, black, wire from the switch leg cable, which will be connected to the load terminal, gold screw, of the same single pole switch of the dual switch as the other wire from the same switch leg cable. Both wires from the same switch leg cable must be connected to the same single pole switch of the dual switch as a pair. It does not matter which wire from the switch leg cable is connected to which same single pole switch terminal, but for consistency, the wire from the power source should be connected to the common terminal, black screw, and the load wire to the load terminal, gold screw, of the same single pole switch, as specified in the instructions. Connect the ground, bare, wire from the junction box to the ground terminal of the switch, green screw. Ground wire connected. Connect the hot pigtail wire, black, from the power source to the hot common terminal, black screw, of one of the 2 switches of the split dual switch. Hot pigtail wire connected. Connect the hot, black, wire from the cable to the light outlet that is supplied from the same circuit as the pigtail wire, same neutral wire, to the load terminal, gold screw, A1 or B1 depending on which switch is selected when connecting the hot wire from the power source, of the same single pole switch of a split double switch. Connected load wire from the same circuit. Connect the hot, white marked black wire from the switch leg cable to the other hot terminal, black screw, of the second single pole switch of the split dual switch. Hot, white marked black wire connected. Connect the hot, black wire from the switch leg cable to the load terminal, gold screw, of the same single pole switch of the split dual switch as the other wire from the same switch leg cable. Other wire from the switch leg cable connected. If you swap the wires on the terminals of the same single pole switch of the split dual switch, nothing bad happens. But you cannot mix the wires from two single pole switches when the light outlets are powered by two different power sources. Insert the wires into the junction box. Make sure the ground wire does not touch any of the hot terminals of the switch. Secure the switch to the junction box and install the switch wall plate. Light outlet junction box with a pull chain light socket to which the switch leg cable will be added to control that light outlet. Turn off the power. Remove the pull chain light socket from the junction box. Make sure the light outlet junction box will accommodate the new cable. According to the junction box calculations in the NEC, National Electrical Code, this junction box will accommodate another 14-2 cable. Cable from the power source. Cables to another electrical outlets. Temporarily pull the spliced wires out of the junction box to make room for the new cable. Junction box cable wires. Ground wires, bare. Neutral wires, white. Hot wires, black. Install a cable of the same gauge from the switch junction box as the wires in the light outlet junction box, insert it into the light outlet junction box, and secure it to a stud no more than 12 inches from the point where the cable enters the junction box. (14) 2 nm non-metallic sheathed cable from the new switch enters into the light outlet junction box. Cable secured to the stud within 12 inches of the cable entry into the junction box. Remove the cable sheath. Wires should be at least 6 inches long. The cable sheath shall extend into the junction box not less than 1/4 inch. Connect the ground, bare, wire of the new cable to the ground, bare, wires from the junction box. Then insert the connected wires into the junction box. Ground wires spliced and inserted into the junction box. Use black electrical tape or other means to change the color of the neutral, white, wire from the switch leg cable to the hot wire, as this wire will no longer be neutral wire. White cable wire marked as hot. Disconnect the hot, black, wire from the light socket and remove this pigtail wire from the spliced hot, black, wires. Trim the white wire marked as black from the switch leg cable to no shorter than 6 inches, splice it with other hot, black, wires from the junction box, and insert the spliced wires into the junction box. White wire from switch leg cable marked black and all black wires from the junction box. Connected with wire nut and inserted into the junction box. Trim the remaining wire to no shorter than 6 inches, strip the end of the wire about 1/2 inch, and connect it to the hot terminal of the light socket, gold screw. The wire was trimmed and the insulation was stripped from the end of the wire. Hot wire connected to the light socket connection terminal, gold screw. Secure the pull chain light socket to the junction box and install the light bulb. If this video is helpful, please subscribe. Comments are welcome.